Animal Farm explores the theme of betrayal and broken promises. Write an essay in which you describe two instances of betrayal in the novella. For one of these instances, discuss the emotional and practical consequences on the animals involved. Finally, analyze how Orwell uses this betrayal to enhance the novella's critique of political systems. Now, let's first break this down into its three sections. First, you have to describe two instances. Then we're going to pick one of these instances, discuss impact. Finally, gonna analyze that. All right, who wants to get a start this time?
Okay, so for my first instance, I put the betrayal of Molly leaving the farm. For the second betrayal instance, I put when Napoleon hosted the meeting and the animals were confessing what they did wrong, so they were betraying like the animalism. And then I put for the second one, I used the second one for the consequences. The practical consequences that they received were they were killed. And then for the last one, when it says analyze, how Orwell uses his betrayal to enhance the novella's critique of political systems. I put that the betrayal shows that political systems are unfair, and it shows that it affects some people more than others, which leads to betrayal when people don't agree with the system or it doesn't affect them.
Good. And if you were to find, let's say, one real world historical example of that happening, then bingo, that would be quite solid. All right, pretty nice. I thought of them, but I didn't choose either of those instances of betrayal. So that's interesting. I wonder if we might overlap in some of the betrayals that we identify, because there are a number of betrayals in this novella. So it's going to be interesting to see what each of us decides to focus on. All right, Haley, thank you. That's pretty good. Wants to follow up. All right, Chantel, go ahead.
First part, describe of betrayal. I have the betrayal of Boxer. Boxer was one of, if not hardest person on Animal Farm, but he was betrayed by the very own people and cause who he had devoted his life to. The second betrayal, I said the abandonment of the commandments by the pigs. They had betrayed the very own thing that they put in place to distinguish themselves from man. For the second part, for one of these instances, discuss the emotional and practical consequence. The animal I chose my second instance. By abandoning the commandment, the pigs were hard to be distinguished from men, and the animals saw that too late. So it gave the feeling that they were going back to Mr. Jones. For the last part, finally analyze how Orwell uses this betrayal to enhance the novella's political system. It shows how this helps in politics. They'll promise a lot of things, and how when they're in power, they'll implement things that their voters will need in the future. But eventually, when they have that power, they use it for their own advantage.
All right. Thank you. Nice. That's a nice plan right there. And you touched on one of the betrayals that I would have used. All right. Pretty good. I'm liking the variety in the answers thus far. Okay. Who wants to run it next? Is that Vashti?
Yes, sir.
All right. Go ahead.
All right. So the two instances of betrayal in the novella. My first betrayal is the betrayal of the 7 commandments. The second betrayal will be the betrayal exhibited to Squealer. The emotional consequences and the practical consequences. Well, the first emotional consequence is that the reader observes the cruel way in which the pigs begin to hoard luxuries and have no conscience when it comes to suffering the masses. And I feel that emotionally it wears itself down on the reader, who is just in a state of, I can't believe this is happening. Now, practically, In plastering a reason for the apples and milk scenario, the pigs begin to ward off the masses becoming any part of the wealth of the very work that they are working so desperately for. And the pigs begin to enforce through apples and milk the class system. All right. So that I think that practically that's how the initial part of the class system starts up. Now, I think, and I am up for critique for this one, that Orwell uses this betrayal to enhance the novella's critique of political systems. I think Orwell himself provided us with commandments that he has also put to us for the reader to see how meticulous political systems are in keeping the population constantly at the level of bare necessities in life. Orwell told us these are, so it's like if he laid very quietly, he laid in also for the reader to see commandments that he was also telling us. Take a look at how political systems keep you at bay at all times. They give you the bare necessity while plying themselves with the best of everything. So they are constantly, all political systems are constantly in the apples and milk scenario, and they keep their people subdued. And if you dare step over that, you will be killed, metaphorically or otherwise.
Yeah. Pretty good. That betrayal right there, Squealer really defending why the pigs need to be the ones getting the milk and apples. Yeah, that's kind of where it, as you mentioned, the class divide really started when the wealth started to be shared in a disproportionate manner. Yeah, pretty good, pretty interesting. All right, I'll share my 2 cents on this one, and I also have different betrayals as well. I have Boxer's betrayal. I think Chantal mentioned that one, and this betrayal would be basically the murder of Boxer. And I also have Snowball's betrayal. Snowball being thrown out of the farm. I thought that was a betrayal because Snowball was a hero. He acted heroically, and he was rewarded with this consequence of being thrown out, being isolated, ostracized, and demonized, villainized. And I would look at, for the second part, Snowball's betrayal, the emotional and practical consequences. So emotional impact of Snowball's betrayal, the emotional impact on the remaining animals. They were immediately confused. So confusion and anxiety. Why was Snowball, put out? Why is he being spoken of as if he's a villain? Didn't he defend us? Didn't he fight well? And so that kind of confusion, the questioning, the doubt, the self-doubt, the gaslighting, that would be the emotional impact on the animals. The practical consequence would be the consolidation of Napoleon's power, which made everything worse for the animals. Because there's no Snowball, there's no longer this kind of two-party system that ensured some amount of democracy, or at least some amount of choice, or at the very least an illusion of choice, right? All that was cast aside when Snowball was banished, pretty much. And that had lots of practical implications because now it's only King Napoleon, whatever he says goes. As for how Orwell uses this betrayal to enhance the novella's critique of political systems, I would stick to the idea that leaders who are able to consolidate power and villainize their opposition are able to dominate their subjects. Basically, this is how dictatorships and authoritarian government and tyrannies are formed. It's by eliminating the other possible contenders for power and ensuring that you're the only one who can possibly be on top. And that is exactly what Napoleon did, which I think is pretty much in line with other governments that historically became, autocratic, became dictatorships. It's a matter of consolidation. So that was my approach. I'd work with that plan. Any other before we look at another question? Did anybody else come up with an interesting kind of essay plan?
Can I try, sir?
Yes, Faris, go ahead, please.
So the first part was describing 2 instances of betrayal. I put the pig's manipulation of the seven commandments, ultimately leading to the slogan, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, which contradicts the original, or actually not only contradicts, but it betrays the original ideals of animalism. And then the second instance of betrayal is when the pigs betrayed Boxer by selling him to the glue factory for money to buy whiskey, which shows a level of cruelty and disregard and also betrayal for the animals once they are no longer of use to them. And then for one instance, which discussed the emotional and practical consequences of the animals involved, I chose Boxer's betrayal, which highlights the dangers of blindly following and following the provision of the revolution's ideals is what I have. And then the last part, where finally analyze how Orwell uses this betrayal to enhance the novella's critique of political systems. I use Boxer's betrayals to illustrate how revolutionary ideas can be perverted and how the working class is exploited, which ultimately highlights the aforementioned blind loyalty to the unchecked power.
Yeah. This question has so much potential because maybe 5 or 6 of us have spoken, and each essay would look different based on how how we approach it. Very interesting. And you use two critical words that hopefully we get a chance to use in our Animal Farm essay. Perversion. The perversion of whether it's a philosophy or a belief system or whatever. The perversion, right? That's an interesting word that we might be able to use. And you mentioned exploitation too. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly so, and it matches well with what Miss Manu said. So.
All right, interesting. Very interesting. I'm glad you settled on this question. I didn't even notice going in that there were so many betrayals, so many, and we didn't even look. We looked more at betrayals than broken promises. There, lots of broken promises too. Because the pigs did nothing but promise, right? They promised, they promised, they promised. And even where the windmill is concerned, they promised, oh, when we get the windmill done, this and that and this and that. Promised Boxer his plot of land where he would be able to enjoy his retirement. So many promises, they all ended up being broken.